What is going on, sports family? It's your favorite history teacher, Mr. Parker Ainsworth, and our intern, Chris Sliwa. After some, we'll call them technical difficulties, although they might be old man teacher bad with technology difficulties. I'm not sure. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Parker. Like I mentioned last week, I was just finishing up classes. I'm officially no longer a college student, although graduation isn't until like May, and I won't get my diploma for another year, but I'm doing great.
That just means you get to enjoy the college lifestyle a little bit longer, right? That's all that really means. And tonight we're brought to you again for our midterm, or I guess today we're recording on a Thursday night, but it's coming out Friday from MyBookie. MyBookie wants to encourage you guys to check out the fights this weekend. You have Wilder versus Fury, Mayweather versus Pacquiao, electric personalities that produce big fights and even bigger betting opportunities. This Saturday, Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley will be no different. So don't miss out on the action. Bet the fight with MyBookie. MyBookie has the best odds and prop bets for Paul Woodley. And you can start by doubling your initial deposit all the way up to $1,000 using promo code FINSPORTS. That's FINSPORTS. That's double your deposit, double your funds, and double the excitement of Paul Woodley at MyBookie. As much as we all love to see Jake Paul eat canvas, he's looked strong in previous matchups, and Woodley taking his fight on short notice, all odds are in Paul's favor. Back the problem child to win this rematch, as he's sure to be the favorite. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit up to $1,000 by using promo code FINSPORTS. That's FINSPORTS. Head to MyBookie today, place your bets, fill your pockets, and watch this grudge match get settled with Paul versus Woodley number 2. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. So, Chris, you mentioned that you'd seen the first one of these fights. So can you give us a quick recap of how the first one went?
From what I remember, the first fight, it was pretty much back and forth the entire time. I don't think either one of them fell to the ground once. I may be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty positive that neither one of them got knocked down once. I think Woodley might have, like, barely, but it was really just a back and forth, and it probably could have gone anyway, but if I remember correctly, towards the end, Jake Paul kind of started pulling away with it, and that's why he came out with the victory.
And Jake Paul, I think because of that, is favored this time around. He's at minus 255. You can take Woodley for plus 205. I think, I guess you could, add some fuel to the fire. But as MyBookie let us know, I mean, Woodley has joined this fight kind of late notice. Jake Paul won the first one. I say take the 255 here. On top of that, there's a handful of different props you can bet. You could go with Paul by decision or technical decision at plus 120. Paul by KO, TKO, or DQ at plus 200. Some sort of a technical draw or technical draw would be plus 1400. I don't know if I see this going that way. Chris, if we both feel fairly confident about Paul this time around, I think the real question is, what's the next big celebrity boxing match? So the thesis reads, the next big celebrity boxing match that everyone should want to see is Jake Paul versus Logan Paul. You hear that and you grade it.
If I could go any higher than an A+, I would do that. But since A+ is the highest that you can go with for a grade, I'm giving it that.
I'm going to sit at also like a A-. I also think that shows my age though, so we'll talk about it in a second. All right, so again, I'm the old man teacher. You're the student. You gave this as high a grade as you could give it, that we want to see Jake Paul versus Logan Paul. Why is that? What's your reasoning there?
I mean, one, who wouldn't want to see two brothers just go at each other in a boxing match? I think anyone that grew up with siblings would probably enjoy seeing that. But, I mean, they've both been doing this boxing thing for quite some time. And I think that if they were to go up against each other, granted, maybe like Jake Paul right now is the better fighter than Logan Paul, but if they went up against each other, I'm sure that would be one of the highest paydays they'll both ever receive. I think it'd be something a lot of people would want to see. And I just think it would be very interesting to see two brothers just deke it out and just go at each other for a couple of rounds.
They're also fairly similar in size. I think that's interesting because my brother and I are not similar in size. I think I got him by a solid 30, 40 pounds. And that's depending on whether or not it's at before or after Christmas. I also think that it's interesting here in looking at like neither one of them. I mean, obviously Logan Paul has the 1 professional fight. Jake Paul has the 4. They both have been training for this, but neither one is like a career boxer. They're both YouTube sensations. Were you familiar with, again, old man Ainsworth here, teacher, were you familiar with these guys as YouTube stars before they started boxing, or is this vitriol just like the normal brother stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty familiar with them. I've never really watched any of their stuff too intently, but I've always like known of them, and I think they were both Disney stars at one point, or at least one of them was. So obviously, I grew up with the Disney stuff. I remember them from back in the day. But yeah, like I said, I really haven't been paying too much attention to them, but they seem to always pop up somehow, some way on my timeline. So I'll pay attention to that.
For sure. And they certainly have been in their own amount of controversy. I think everyone would like to see a Logan Paul versus Jake Paul fight where they both lose. I don't think that's a possibility. We both think that Jake Paul wins this weekend. Talk to me about if Tyron Woodley does come out on top of this. What would he have to fix from the first time around? Like, what did you notice? What kind of things is he? Anyway, what kind of things did you notice you think he would have to change from the first fight they had?
I think in the first fight, he was being a little too patient. At times, he was looked like he was just kind of trying to test the waters and just bounce around the ring the entire time. And then he did have some nice punches here and there, but then again, he's 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and Jake Paul is like 24, 26, somewhere around there. So Jake Paul definitely has the youth and speed, I guess you could say. But I mean, Tyron Woodley is still a former UFC fighter. He can definitely still pack a punch. I think he has to be a little more aggressive. And last time he wasn't. He was more in a UFC fighting stance and a boxing stance, which seems like a lot of these UFC fighters do when they go into boxing, which I mean, obviously is reasonable since they have a career in UFC and not boxing. But I think Woodley just has to be a little more aggressive this time around, and then maybe he can surprise a lot of people.
I think that's fair. I think that it's worth pointing out that while he is a career fighter, he is not necessarily a career boxer. And there's a weird, you got to be much more of a technician in boxing than you do in MMA or other UFC style fighting. It just like fighting in general does not always translate. The big story here, though, is that boxing is moving towards celebrity boxing, right? Like across the board, it's no longer about, Ollie Liston. It's more about like, I know these names. I want to see them punch each other in the face a bunch of times, and they work out towards it. So Paul brothers aside, because I both think we'd like to see the brotherly love that goes on there, are there any big celebrity professional athletes, or I guess don't have to be professional athletes, anyone you would like to see duke it out in the ring, either one or two people, or if you have a whole card, that'd be brilliant, but I only have a few people.
I don't know why these two names are popping in my head, but I think this would never happen in a million years, but I do think it'd be pretty funny if Tom Brady and Peyton Manning got in the ring and went against each other, or maybe Tom and Eli, or just both the Manning brothers going at each other. I think that would be pretty hilarious. What else could there be? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of like a star in one sport and a star in another sport, trying to pair them together.
Well, so if I give you, this isn't necessarily a star, but I'd be interested to see him box. If I give you Steven Adams, big 7 foot, 260 pound, looks like Aquaman, who would realistically, who could fight that guy? Who could box with that guy?
Maybe Jonas Valanciunas, since he's another big 7-footer. Maybe probably any NFL lineman. Maybe they might have a shot. Granted, I feel like Adams might be a little quicker than an NFL lineman. But yeah, those are the only two options I think of when I think of those two names. Maybe Shaq, but Shaq's old.
Shaq's a little bit older. I will say, in his heyday, Shaq might have the advantage there, frankly.
I just thought of it, though. What about Shaq and Charles Barkley? They like to go at each
that's
other
fun. That's fun. Charles has probably given up something on the reach there, but he has all those comments Shaq throws and just in the back of his head. Okay, throwing out names. Worth pointing out, we're talking about other celebrities. The card right on the card that night, just before Woodley Paul, is Darren Williams, Frank Gore. And a little bit slightly more serious note, although it is two sports celebrities fighting, so it's as serious as that gets. what would you predict out of Darren Williams versus Frank Gore? Yet NBA point guard, NFL running back.
I'm going to go with the running back in Frank Gore. I think he's used to getting hit left and right from his football career. Granted, this time he'll be getting hit with no pads on, but I think he'll be able to take the punches from Darren Williams. And I think I would take Frank Gore in this, although he is shorter in size.
Well, and so you could make some real money there on MyBookie. It looks like they've got Darren Williams at -150. I think that's probably because of the length. He's 6'3" and Frank Gore is 5'9", and
Geez.
I think the deal there is they're thinking that reach is going to have something to say. They're playing weights, I will say. Frank Gore's got him by about 15 pounds, so much more compact, much more used to violence, frankly, just in the way that in the sports they played. And Frank Gore, rushed his way into the soon-to-be Hall of Fame 3 yards at a time, right? So, I think that there is something to be said about that. Might be where it's easier to take the underdog as opposed to Woodley and Paul. If I were to throw out more sports names, I want to hear. So if I say Russell Westbrook and Marcus Smart. High energy. Smart's a little bit younger, but they're both about 6'3". They're both listed at over 200 pounds. I guess they got. I'm reading something that says Marcus Smart is 220, and I didn't realize he was that heavy. But you got Westbrook at 205. 220 sounds heavy to me for Marcus Smart, but that might have been once upon a time. I throw those two in a ring. Obviously, it's just controlled chaos because these guys are not professionally trained boxers. Where are you going with that kind of thing?
Oh, you got me good there because Marcus Smart, obviously, he's a Celtic, great Celtic, big fan of him. But then also Russell Westbrook's my favorite non-Celtic at the moment, although he is a Laker. Oh, that would be tough. I think I would have to go Russell Westbrook just because he is way more athletic than Smart, although him and Smart would probably beat the crap out of each other just going back and forth with the way those two guys are.
I think the rep would have to call. I don't think either one would quit.
I do have two names for you, though, that just randomly popped in my head. They're not athletes, but I feel like this would be a very entertaining fight. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. They've been in some great movies.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I feel weirdly like Ferrell might have it in him. Ferrell's also really tall, right? And so I feel weirdly like he might have it in him. And if I'm being really honest, neither one of them will be able to go very many rounds as far as being in shape goes. I feel like Will Ferrell will be able to go a few more rounds. And that might be because I'm thinking of the way he's like, we're going streaking and running down the street, but I've at least seen him do the Flint Tropics. I've seen him do athletic things in movies. I don't think I've seen any sort of athleticism from John C. Reilly, but that's honestly me talking through thinking. So I don't know. I'd probably think on a little more. When you put that together, are you thinking one or the other?
Not necessarily. I just know that they've been in some great movies like Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, the Sherlock Holmes movie, but I would probably have to go with Will Ferrell as well. And speaking of him being athletic, there was that moment a couple of years ago in spring training where he was bouncing around from game to game. So he does have that athletic history behind him.
Yeah, that's Will Ferrell's athletic history. That's a great YouTube connection, I'm sure. Other celebrity things. I was trying to find someone the equivalent size to fight The Rock. Okay. There's no one to fight The Rock. The Rock was a WWE wrestling, but The Rock also has a professional wrestling background. Terry Crews came the closest. Now, Terry Crews had a football career, also has been in some violent sports, right? Slightly more successful football career, I would say, than The Rock, but not by a lot. Crews is giving up 3 inches and 25 pounds, it looks like. So I don't know if that's like a great comp, but they're both big, strong guys that have history of being a badass, and they're modern. Like the way a 10-year-old knows Terry Crews or a 10-year-old knows The Rock is they're the funny big guy in shows. So if I put Terry Crews and The Rock out there, do you give the advantage to The Rock because he's just so much bigger?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry, Terry Crews is a great actor and he's had a great career in other aspects, but The Rock is getting him 9 times out of 10.
And then I didn't realize I joked about Steven Adams. I was like, oh, what about the actual Aquaman, Jason Momoa? Momoa, I say only. Momoa is only 6'3", 215. He's just shredded. Yeah, but 6'3", 215 is giving up 50 pounds to The Rock. I don't think there's anything like that.
I feel like the only close comparison for The Rock and then like a fighting stance would be John Cena, but I feel like John Cena's not even as big as him, or is he? I'm not really sure.
He's not as tall. He's like structurally like looks very big. He's not as tall. I googled that as well when I was going through people. My Momoa comparison, I got to Hemsworth. Like if he was like in like the Thor shape. I don't know if that actually pairs up well or not. It's certainly two good-looking guys fighting, but I don't know. I don't know if it's the most talented fighters. What other act you mentioned comedians, and it would be really funny to watch Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly fight. What other actors or other types of celebrities would you want to see in the ring?
I don't know why this is popping in my head, but we should find someone to go against Joe Rogan. I feel there are a lot of people I want to play.
Truthfully, the funny thing would be like Pat McAfee and Joe Rogan after they're fawning over Aaron Rodgers. He's on both podcasts. That'd be really funny to see Pat McAfee and Joe Rogan. Well, while the fights this weekend and it's gonna be a fun time, stay up. It's one of those classic stay up all night, watch boxing all night kind of Saturday nights, especially with college football over. The NFL games are on earlier in the day. Chris, as always, you're an active tweeter. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm very active at Chris_Sliwa7, doing my thing on there right now. Hopefully going to start writing some more soon. I know I said that last week, but right now I'm just taking a couple weeks to cool down and recharge from this last semester of college, and then I'm really going to start hitting the podcast, hitting the writing, and tweeting a lot more. So be on the lookout for me for sure.
Perfect. Always look for Chris_Sliwa7 on Twitter. And then obviously whenever you see FINSPORTS stuff tweeted out, he's the one behind the scenes been doing all the editing for this entire last semester. So make sure you give those things some love. You can find me and my personal stuff at Painsworth512. That's PAINSWORTH 512 on Twitter and Instagram. This show is at F_N_sports on Instagram. We're also on Twitter at FINSPORTS2. That's FINSPORTS 2. Those social medias will be able to find all of our merch sales, all our episodes, all our content, that kind of stuff that we're putting out, including links to our sponsors like MyBookie, which is again sponsoring this midterm episode and midweek midterm episode. And they want to make sure that you guys watch fight this weekend. Wilder versus Fury, Mayweather versus Pacquiao, electric personalities that produce big fights and even bigger betting opportunities. This Saturday, Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley will be no different. So don't miss out on the action. Bet the fight with MyBookie. MyBookie has the best odds and prop bets for Paul Woodley. And you can start by doubling your initial deposit all the way up to $1,000 using promo code FINSPORTS. That's W deposit with FINSPORTS, W deposit, W funds, and double the excitement for Paul Woodley too at MyBookie. As much as we'd all love to see Jake Paul eat canvas, he's looked strong in previous matchups, and with Woodley taking this fight on short notice, all the odds are in Paul's favor, and we tend to agree, so much so that we spent the time really coming up with other fights. Back to Problem Child to win this rematch, and he's sure to be the favorite. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit up to $1,000 by using promo code FINSPORTS, FINSPORTS. Head to MyBookie today, place your bets, fill your pockets, and watch this grudge match get settled with Paul versus Woodley to bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Thanks for stopping by, Chris.
Thank you.